Hey guys, it's Nick, and I want to do another Forgotten Blackhawk episode. This will be episode 5 of the Forgotten Blackhawk. This player is a defenseman from the 2010 Stanley Cup team, so that team was pretty deep in how well it played. This player isn't remembered much of as a solid player because he was moved around quite a bit in his NHL career. Today, he doesn't play in the NHL anymore. He doesn't play any professional hockey anymore. He's now an active voice in dyslexia. So I honestly think that's very cool. So I wanted to do this video on this player for the Forgotten Blackhawk. So let's get into episode 5 of the Forgotten Blackhawk. Welcome to episode 5 of the Forgotten Blackhawk. This time on Brent Sopel. Brent Sopel's NHL career started out with the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks took Sopel with the 144th pick in the 6th round of the 1995 NHL draft. Sopel didn't make his NHL debut until the season of the 1998-99 season. Sopel played a total of 6 years with the Canucks on his first stint, having totaled 302 games, having 32 goals, 93 assists, for a total of 125 points. Sopel being a blue liner, those are solid numbers right there for being a blue liner, getting a few points every now and then, and helping the Canucks make it to the Stanley Cup playoffs 4 times on this stint with the Canucks, playing a total of 31 games, having 2 goals, 9 assists for 11 points. Sopel's time in Vancouver comes to an end in 2005 of August 3rd, where the Canucks traded Sopel over to the New York Islanders. The Canucks get a conditional second round pick for the 2006 NHL draft. Sopel then signed a 2-year contract with the Islanders. And Sopel's time with the Islanders starts off where he plays pretty solid. Sopel didn't get to play out his 2-year contract that he signed with the Islanders. He only played half a season with the Islanders, where he played in the 05-06 season, having a total of 57 games played, 2 goals, 25 assists for a total of 27 points with the New York Islanders. On March 3rd, 2006, Sopel is traded again. He was traded to the LA Kings, where the Kings acquired Sopel and Mark Parrish. The Islanders get a couple depth players, but really they weren't that big of players. That's why, in my opinion, LA wins this trade. So, Sopel's time in LA starts where he plays 11 games for the 05-06 season with the Kings, having only 1 point, where he only got an assist on that season. In 06-07, he played a total of 44 games, having recorded 4 goals, 19 assists, for a total of 23 points. So all in total, he played a total of 55 games, having 4 goals, 20 assists, for a total of 24 points with the LA Kings. He is traded in the 06-07 season back to the Vancouver Canucks, where the Canucks get Brent Sopel, and the LA Kings acquire a 2nd round pick originally owned by Anaheim, where the Kings drafted Wayne Simmons with that pick. They also acquired a 4th round pick that they later on traded to Buffalo. So, Sopel goes back to where his career started, Vancouver. In the 06-07 season, Sopel is coming in, being a free agent and all. He played 20 games with the Canucks, having recorded 1 goal, having 4 assists, and a total of 5 points. The Canucks made it to the playoffs, where Sopel played 11 games with the Canucks that year in the playoffs and had no points on that run. So altogether, Sopel played a total of 7 years with the Vancouver Canucks, playing a total of 320 games, having recorded 33 goals, 97 assists, for a total of 130 points with the Vancouver Canucks. And then, with being on the Canucks, he played in 5 playoff years, playing a total of 42 games with the Canucks, having recorded 2 goals, 9 assists, for a total of 11 points. Sopel is now a free agent, and he signs with the Chicago Blackhawks of October of 2007. So it was a late signing by the Chicago Blackhawks to get Brent Sopel aboard. In 2007-2008, Sopel played a total of 58 games, having recorded 1 goal, 19 assists, for 20 points. Solid numbers, playing 58 games. Wasn't a full season for him, but he played okay when he was in the lineup. This was also a season of transition for the Chicago Blackhawks, from a rebuild status to contender status, where the Blackhawks missed out on the playoffs by only 3 points. The following season wasn't so great for Sopel. He only played 23 games, having recorded 1 goal, 1 assist, for 2 points on the season. It was an injured-ridden season for Sopel. But on the other hand, for the Blackhawks, this was a great season for that team. They were a young team that made it to the 2009 Western Conference Final, where the Hawks ended up losing to the Detroit Red Wings. Hawks made a good run out of that playoff run where they beat Sopel's former team in the second round, the Vancouver Canucks. But the next season, the 2009-2010 Chicago Blackhawks. Brent Sopel played a total of 73 games, having recorded 1 goal, 7 assists, for 8 points on the year. Sopel, at this point in his career, he is now a depth player. He doesn't put up the points, but he still is very useful for this team. It was a good, solid season all around, but not for point production for Sopel. The entire team up front of him and was as elite, because the Chicago Blackhawks make it back to the playoffs, and Sopel becomes a 2010 Stanley Cup Champion, playing 22 games of the playoffs, having 1 goal, 5 assists, for 6 points on the year. He basically gets close to his total of his regular season stats, where he put up a total of 8 points on his season. He had a solid playoff. I have to admit, in the first round of the playoffs, when the Hawks played the Nashville Predators, that is, he played great. He was probably the most underappreciated Blackhawk in that run to the Stanley Cup, because when he was on the blue line, he was playing great hockey in that playoff run. He helped the Hawks get to the Stanley Cup final, but in the first round against the Nashville Predators, he played great, and honestly, he was one of the most unappreciated Blackhawks of that run. But after becoming a Stanley Cup champion, his time in Chicago comes to an end. On June 23rd, 2010, Brent Sopel is traded again in a big blockbuster deal where Sopel was traded to the Atlanta Thrashers. And the Thrashers acquired Dustin Byfuglien and Ben Eager at this trade. They also acquired Akim Aliu in the trade. Aliu was part of the Rockford IceHogs at the time. So the three NHL players at the time were Byfuglien, Sopel, and Eager. Coming to Chicago was Joey Krebs, Jeremy Morin, Marty Reasoner, and a 2010 first and second round pick that were originally owned by the New Jersey Devils. That first round pick was Kevin Hayes, and the Hawks could not sign Hayes because he went college and he decided to play out his college career and go free agent and sign with the New York Rangers. Now, he's an Atlanta Thrashers. Sopel's playing for the Thrashers. In the 2010-11 season, he played 59 games with the Thrashers, having recorded 2 goals, 5 assists for 7 points. Yes, with the Thrashers for the 2010-11 season. He gets traded away from Atlanta again. This is his final trade, final time being involved in a trade in his career, where he was traded to the Montreal Canadiens, where the Canadiens acquire Brent Sopel, Nigel Drawls, and the Thrashers acquire Bing Maxwell and a 2011 fourth round pick. So now Sopel is on his third team in less than a year. And it's his second original 6 team in less than a year. Sopel is on his final year in the NHL, playing for the Montreal Canadiens in the 2010-11 season, where he played 12 games with the Canadiens, recording no points in that time. But in the playoffs, the Canadiens make it to the 2011 playoffs. They lost in 7 games, having recorded 1 goal in that playoff run, becoming his final point in his NHL career. Sopel's time in the NHL came to an end. But honestly, I feel like he's more of a Chicago Blackhawk for what he helped the Hawks do, getting to a Stanley Cup championship. Or you could think of him as a Vancouver Canuck because he did play 7 years with that team. But him being a big contributor with the Hawks going towards the 2010 Cup by how well he played in that playoff run, I really do respect his play. After his NHL career is over, he did end up going to the KHL for about 4 years. Then he signed a 1-year deal in the 2014-15 season with the AHL Chicago Wolves. Didn't come back to the NHL after signing a time with the Chicago Wolves, but his time in the NHL, playing a total of 12 years in the NHL, having played 659 games, having recorded 44 goals, 172 assists for a total of 218 points. Sopel, his better years were in Vancouver, but he did manage to end his career basically becoming a Stanley Cup champion. And it's well deserved for Sopel to have that ring because he now has the honor of having his name engraved in the Stanley Cup. Since Sopel's professional hockey career has ended, he has done a couple of events with the Chicago Blackhawks. He's been in a couple of alumni games. These pictures, as you can see in this video, are actually images I took when I went to the 2017 Winter Classic alumni game between the Chicago Blackhawks and St. Louis Blues. Sopel was part of the alumni team. He did also play for the Hawks alumni in the 2016 Stadium Series alumni game where the Hawks alumni faced off against the Minnesota North Stars / Wild alumni game. That was a fun game to watch because I got to see a North Star jersey. I never got to see those play on the ice. But seeing the Hawks alumni, having Brent Sopel on here, I do honestly think that's cool that they still have him part of the Blackhawks organization on the alumni roster. So I really do respect the Hawks for having him be a part of their alumni teams. Knowing that Brent Sopel's NHL and professional hockey career is over, but him being part of the Hawk alumni for a couple of alumni events that they played in, I do think that's very cool. And he's also a Stanley Cup champion with this team, the 2010 team. But an important part is that Sopel helped the Hawks get to a cup. But now, after his professional hockey career has ended, he is an active voice on dyslexia, which I really do respect Sopel for doing that. Talking about a thing that a lot of people actually do struggle with through their education career and their adult career. It's a problem a lot of people deal with. Sopel has dyslexia. There are even more famous people, really famous people, like Albert Einstein, who had dyslexia. It's very cool that Sopel is now an active voice on that. So, down in the description down below, I will leave a link to Sopel's Twitter account down there, and also a link to the rest of the Forgotten Blackhawk series in the description down below. So, thank you for watching the broadcast. Please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And most of all, let's go Hawks.